Rebecca from the Glitched Stitchery. I'm here again with another Glitched Knits segment. So this is just a continuation of my last segment because I wasn't happy with my results with double pointed needles last time, and I can't do the one that I had wanted to do right now anyway because of a yarn issue that I'll mention when we get to that video. It's not a big deal, but can't do that one yet anyway, so might as well do this and just continue with my double pointed needles practice. So you might have seen me working on this on Instagram if you follow me on Instagram, which I highly recommend because you see stuff way sooner than it gets posted on YouTube, but you get more information on YouTube, so very different things. Anyway, pretty much as soon as that video was done, I finished the hat that I was working on out of the hand spun. So this is the koi hand spun. And literally I was letting my video render and I finished this while the video was rendering. So there's that. But, oh, come back. I got it. So after I did that, I wanted to get double pointed needles to do the actual projects that we were talking about. Now I had a few sets of double pointed needles in my stash of yarn tools. I had the steel Xiaogu ones that I used for this hat, and I'm using them again. These I've had for a while. They're hollow, so they're very light, and they've got a nice sharp tip to them that I very much like. And for the most part, I prefer metal tools. I just am a little bit more comfortable with how smooth they are and how easy I can get in and out of the stitches. So I cast on with those. I just learned the pinhole cast on this morning, so I'm very proud of myself. Not well enough for me to show you how to do it, but soon after I try it a few more times. But in addition to those, I had the birch ones from the twin birch video. So pretty much as soon as I finished the koi hat, I started another koi hat, this time with the twin birch. So that's going pretty well. This is the one that I've been bringing with me places to work on, just because it is a nice rhythm. I've decided that I don't mind working with the birch needles. They're not as slippery as the metal, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. For the most part, I prefer the smoothness of metal needles, but sometimes the grippiness is nice, and these are not too grippy. They're still pretty smooth, so it's a nice balance, I think. Now, in addition to that, I also have this scent from L-Y-K-K-E, Luca? I forget how to pronounce it. It's something along those lines. But, so, they're blue, first of all. These I'm not liking as much. They are very smooth because they have that laminated, is it laminated? Is that the right word? They're coated in something. But they're not very sharp, so I have a harder time getting in and out of the stitches with these. They're not bad, they're just not my favorite. I do actually have more sets of these. I bought them in smaller sizes for when I was planning on knitting socks, which I haven't done yet because I haven't built up to that point yet, but I have the knitting needles for it. And this is the brand I ended up buying. But I'm probably not going to finish this hat. This was just me trying it out to see what it felt like with these needles. Not a huge fan. They're more slippery than the birch, but not as slippery as metal. But the biggest issue is that they're just not very sharp. So, I don't know, maybe some people don't mind that part as much. I'm just not that person. That's fine. All right, so we'll set those aside for the moment. Now, the 4 that I had arrive today. So, first of all, these are so chunky. All right, so I got from Xiaogu 8-inch US size 11 or 8 millimeters. My thought process was that if they were a little longer, I could keep the hat on them completely and never have to switch over to circulars. Because I do really like the rhythm, it's fun. Now, the ones I have here, these are size 10, which is 6mm. Mentally, I don't think I realized that a 10 is a 6mm while an 11 is an 8mm. I think I thought it was a smaller difference. But now I'm thinking about it, there's like 10.25s and 10.5s and 10.75s because apparently needle sizes don't make any sense. Which I sort of knew that, but yeah, these are huge. So probably just for bulkier yarns, definitely not for the ones that I'm using right now, but they will get used. I'm not sure what for yet. I think the really bulky Surella yarns say size 11, so these might get used for that. I actually got a different set of size 11s as well, but these are different enough so they might still be useful. So these are the Knitter's Pride Nova Cubics Platina, and I actually have a set, like a full set of the Nova Cubics Platina interchangeable needles that I've never used. I bought them and they're just in my stash. I haven't done anything with them yet. Mainly because I also have one pair of these as straight needles and they scratch each other as I'm knitting with them, and I didn't like that. But supposedly squarular cubic needles, whatever, with the corners like that, supposedly you get more even stitches. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm gonna find out. So that's what these are for, and they do look pretty cool, so there's that. Now as for this, all of the super chunky Bliss Merino that I had left over, and for any other super chunky yarns in the future that I spin or buy, I got these. So this one, the box did come open, so I'm just gonna take these out of the box. And that's not really unexpected when stuff like this is sent in the mail. It just kind of happens, and I don't need the box. So these are massive. These are US size 17, which is a 12mm needle. They're like as thick around as my thumb. They're so big. All right, they look dangerous just looking at them, so there is that. I am not sure how actually practical it is going to be knitting with these, but I am going to try it so that I can use up the Bliss, and I wanted to do it on double pointed needles. They are really interesting. Yeah, these are the mindfulness collection, so they have words printed on them that I guess are meant to be inspiring or whatever. I don't, these say awake. I think these ones say balance. I don't know. This was the only brand I could find this size in, so these are what I got. And they're decently sharp considering how big they are. All right, I also got size 15, which is 10mm. So these are still pretty chunky. Obviously not as chunky, but pretty chunky. So those will be fun to play with. I still have to try out all these new pairs of needles, so I'm going to be doing that on camera and just giving everything a shot and figuring out which of these hats I'm actually going to finish and which ones I'm going to unravel and put the yarn back in my stash. But it is kind of fun just playing around with all these different needles. So these ones are size 10.5, so that's not as big a difference from the 11s. So when I finish this hat with the birch, because this one's just going to be a baby hat for my nephew, if I have any yarn, if I have enough yarn left over, I will probably try the Nova Cubics with this, because I think that that would be the closest comparison. So yeah, I'm just going to try that out. I'm going to go to time lapse and we'll see what comes out of all of this experimentation. So I've finished all the increases. I at least want to do that much on camera, although after this I'm going to be probably moving to a more comfortable chair to finish this. This is the type of project I can do in front of the couch, like on the couch in front of the TV. Now that there's no counting involved anymore, I just have to work around and around and around. So getting started with these super chunky needles is incredibly painful. It took me 3 or 4 tries to get it right, because when you're doing the pinhole cast on, it's really hard to get the tension right, and it kept being too loose and the needles would just fall out when I tried to knit with it, and then I'd have to start over. So this was try 4, and I think it will actually be successful, so I'm pretty happy about that. And you can see all the, like, there's these cool seams between the 2 needles, because that's where I did the increases, and it's just a really cool texture. And it's easier to see on other hats. So since I started this video, I've been quite busy. So I had already showed you I'd finished this one. You can see that seam again, because I'm just doing the same thing on all of these, the same type of pattern. So this hat is going to my brother-in-law, and then I made a matching hat for my nephew, and you can see those little seams. And I still have enough yarn left to make a 3rd hat for my other nephew, so it'll just be the 3 of them matching. It'll be adorable for next fall. So I finished this one. And then I also finished this one. I took it with me while I was doing the laundry. And it's finer, it's a finer yarn, more like a DK weight, I think. And it's hand spun, so it's, I mean, it's not perfectly DK weight. This is what I call a scrap-tastic yarn. When I have little bits of singles left, I ply them to all together randomly until I run out, and that makes yarns like this, which are really fun. So yeah, this hat's done. And I did the increases. You can't see it as well because the yarn's really busy, but it has that increased seam in between the double pointed needles. So yeah, I really like that texture. It's really fun to do, and I'm really enjoying using the double pointed needles because there's this really nice rhythm as you get going, as you switch each needle, and it's just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's different than crocheting, and it's different than knitting on straight or circular needles. It's a very meditative, I guess, process. I don't know, I really like it. So we're going to do this one next, and I have these needles for that. I'm going to try to do a pinhole cast on camera, but I've only done these, how many times have I done that now? I think 5. I have been practicing it really obsessively. So yeah, I think it's been about 5. And we will see if it works or not. These are a lot lighter than I expected, which is good. I was worried they'd be really heavy, but they're really shiny for now. They're gonna get all scratched up. Nice sharp. Well, not as sharp as they could be, but sharp enough so I should be able to use them. All right, I should have grabbed this before I started the camera. So for the pinhole cast on, I need a crochet hook. So what do I have that's roughly the right size? What are these, 8mm? These are 8mm. Okay, that'll work. Ideally, this works better if you use a crochet hook that's roughly the same size as the needles. All right. A pinhole cast on is pretty much the same concept as the crochet technique called magic ring. So you have, let's see, I always mess this up. You have the loops on your hand, and you go through with your crochet hook and you grab a loop, and you pull up another one, and you slip it through, and you have this on your hook. See, you're gonna leave that there, and you're gonna go through, pull up a loop, and do that again, and you're gonna do that for however many stitches you want to start this hat off with. So I'm gonna be using 4 needles. It needs to be something divisible by 4. Let's go with 20. Hopefully that'll work. All right, now that I have 2 on there, I don't have to keep this on my hand. I can just kind of hold it. But you want to keep this tail free, because at the end we're going to tug on the tail and tighten the whole thing up. and that creates the pinhole. All right, and I specifically chose a Tunisian crochet hook for this so that I wouldn't have any end on this side, and I could just slip the stitches off the back onto the needles. And that does make it a little easier. There are ways of doing this without using a crochet hook and with just doing it right onto the needles, but I found them a little bit more difficult and harder to manage, so I wanted to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 this way instead. I feel silly making a hat for this particular nephew because he has an absolute hatred for hats. When my younger nephew was born and introduced to nephew number 1, he was, you know, comes home from the hospital wearing a hat. So nephew number 1 comes over and my sister's like, "Hey, it's your new brother. So I say hi to your new brother." And he looks at him, steals his hat, throws it, and runs away. So he just really hates hats. That goes for if I wear a hat around him too, actually. He does not let me wear hats. But maybe by fall, he will have grown out of that, who knows. 11, 12, if we can get him to keep it on long enough for a photo shoot, that'd be great. 13, 14, it's getting a little bit difficult to do this. 15, 16, so close, come on. 17, get up there. 18. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but I don't know what it is yet. Bigger loop, maybe? I just need 2 more. 19. 1 more. 20. Okay. So now I have 20 stitches on my Tunisian crochet hook. We're going to transfer them over to these. So each of these is going to get 5 stitches. So we're going to push it to the back and very carefully, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is that? Yeah, that's 5. Couldn't tell if I was looking at a stitch or not. There's 5. Get the next needle ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get the needle ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And last needle. Slip those on there and then I can put the crochet hook away. Alright, so right now it's really loose and we're gonna pull the tail and tighten it up, create the pinhole, and hopefully this will work because there's always the chance that for some reason it won't. I don't know, it's just one of those things. And it worked. Awesome. Let's try to get it a little tighter. There we go. So now I got that nice tight center hole. We could probably get it even tighter, but it'll be easier once I start getting some knitting so it's not, so the needles aren't in the way. All right, so this tail will get in the way, but you gotta ignore it as best you can. Here's the end. So we're gonna be starting here on this needle. I've never used these, I don't know, I think I used the straight cubics once and I got really sick of them because they scratched each other, but I have not used the double pointeds for cubics before. These are actually fairly comfortable, so that's not bad. I thought maybe the square shape would be uncomfortable. But anyway, I'm just going around and I'm doing 5 stitches, just like what was cast onto it, and that is just our starting round, I guess. I wanted to say row, but I guess round is closer. It feels like a row because each individual needle is straight, and it feels like each individual needle is its own row, but it's not, I promise. I'm not like a master or expert with these by any means, but I've been kind of obsessively using them for 2 weeks now. Not this pair specifically, but just double pointed needles. So I feel relatively confident in this part. When I'm holding them, it's kind of like holding, I don't know, I'm gonna say like a picture frame. So there's the 4 sides of the picture frame. And usually I'm holding the one on the farthest left in my left hand, and also balancing the top one with my left hand. So, and then the working needle is held in my right hand. And I'm taking the stitches off the top needle and knitting them onto the working needle. Oops, missed there. It happens fairly often because sometimes the one on the side gets in the way. You can just kind of center the stitches and push it out of the way a little bit. Once it gets further along, it's really easy and rhythmic. At this point, when you're just starting and it's the first couple rows, it's a little bit torturous. Come on now, don't be like that. It's also the fact that I'm on camera, and it inevitably makes me more clumsy every time I go on camera. Sitting in the parking lot of the laundromat, I do fine. Sitting at my desk in front of a camera, I struggle. Now normally I would also have put a stitch marker in here, but I'm not quite at the point where I feel like I need one yet. But I would put the stitch marker like this line in between the last needle and the first needle, and that way I can keep track of of where I am in the round, like if I'm near the beginning, because especially once I start increasing, which will be the next row, you know what I mean. When I start increasing, it's good to keep track of whether I am at the beginning or end of the round. All right, so I think that's all 4. I've done all 4. Looks like it, yes. All right, throw that out of the way because it keeps getting in my way. Okay, so that was 1 round down. I'm gonna give this another tug now that there's a little bit more room and I can tighten it up a little bit more. At the very end, when the hat's done, I will pull it one last time and then sew it in. Right now, I just need it to be tight enough so that you can see what I'm looking with. This is the right side, so this is the very top of the hat. This is the inside of the hat. And usually the needles stay roughly like this, kind of crisscrossed over each other as I'm working. And like I said, I just kind of hold it like a picture frame, and it turns as I work. So right now, this is the top, and this is the left, and then after I finish this one, this will be the top, this will be the left, and it just keeps rotating, and I keep adjusting where the needles are and all that. That's about it. I mean, they're not particularly difficult to work with. If you've worked with straight needles, you can probably handle this. They're different than circular needles, definitely, but only in that there's a little bit more to juggle and maybe a little bit more coordination required. But the benefit of these over circular needles is if I'm doing a round on circular needles, I get so bored. But this, the rhythm of changing needles, it keeps me interested for some reason. So I was quite happy to just sit there and work on this for the 2 hours I was doing laundry. Not this one, the other one. And I got like most of a hat done, finished it. I don't know, it's nice, I like it. So I'm gonna keep working on this. And I do like these needles. I might buy more of these ones. I don't know for sure if the stitches are more even or not, but I guess when the hat's done, I'll compare it to the previous two with this yarn and see if it looks more even or not. I don't know. I don't really even know how to judge that because it's a hand spun yarn that I definitely didn't spin to be even. It's not perfectly perfect in every way. It's fun and thick and thin a little bit, and textured and hand dyed and funky, and a little bit stretchy too. It's the 3-ply, it's got some stretch, but I will keep knitting and I will check in occasionally. So I'll be right back. So we're already getting to the point where it's a little bit uncomfortable to keep these on the needles. It's getting a little tight in there, so I dropped them. All right, so we're gonna swap to the ChiaoGoo 8-inch size 11s. These are also size 11, right? Yeah. All right, so they're the same size, it's just these are round while these are square. I mean, they don't really, I guess they're the same, I don't know. I'm assuming that they're the same size because they say they're the same size, but we will see if that's actually accurate. But that bit of length will allow me to keep them on the double pointeds longer. Now the other thing I like about ChiaoGoo ones is that they're matte. So I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. See how scratched up these are getting from me working on them? Because of how shiny they are, and they're getting all these little scratches. This is my first time using them and they're all covered in little scratches. That doesn't happen with these. So, so there's that. But in terms of how well they work really, really well. I just cannot stand the scratches. So, yep, I'm gonna swap over these needles and then I'll just keep going till I finish the hat. Right now we are on 11 stitches per needle. I'm going for at least 15, maybe more. I think I used 15 for my younger nephew's hat. And I want this one to be a lot bigger because my older nephew already has a very large head, and by fall I assume it will be even bigger because he's in the 90th percentile. So pretty much going for a small adult size hat at this point. So we'll see what happens. I'll just check the measurements as I go and try to get it to work. So switching over needles, and I'll be right back. So I finished all my hats for this particular project. So now we have my brother-in-law's hat, my older nephew's hat, and my younger nephew's hat. So I'm gonna set these aside for fall. We did have a cold snap, so technically it could have been cold enough for them to wear them now, but I made these for the size they should be this fall, so they're a little too big, other than, you know, my brother-in-law's hat. But yeah, I really like how these came out, and I feel like I'm finally comfortable using double pointed needles. I mean, I used the Pinhole cast on for both of these, and I think I can do that relatively reliably now. And then I did the increases, and I feel very comfortable doing that, and the ribbing I've been comfortable with for a while. The bind off is new too. It's a stretchy bind off technique I learned this week. So in my next video, I'm going to go more in depth into the techniques I'm using and try to show how to do them as well, so that you guys can learn at the same time that I'm learning, because that would be fun. But yeah, I really like how these came out. I still have to sew in the end on this one, but I'm also happy with how this one came out. So it was these two I did not use double pointed needles for, and I just like ran a thread through the top and pulled it shut, which works, but it makes for a really dense top of the hat. So when you use double pointed needles and increase instead, it's much less dense at the top, and I do like that quite a bit, like the really chunky ribbing I did. So yeah, I just have to sew in this end, and then this one will be done as well. So yeah, that was a very productive week for me. That's about how long it took for me to finish this video, 1 week. In that week, I guess I knit 4 hats. I think that's a record for me. Crocheting, I can definitely do more than 4 in a week, but knitting, it usually takes me a lot longer. This one was done this week as well. So yeah, and that was very, very good. So originally I was going to do the bulkier Surella yarn that I have in the surfboard colorway. However, the surfboard colorway was dyed while Surella's team was sick, and she sent out an email that it didn't come out right. I didn't personally notice because I just assumed my computer, I assumed either it was my computer monitor showing the colors weird, or like it just being a difference of it being on a different base. But anyway, they weren't happy with how the surfboard colorway came out, so they're resending new skeins of that to everybody that ordered it. So I'm going to be shelving the surfboard project for a moment. And instead I'm going to use, let's see if I can reach it. Here we go. These two for the next project. So we're going to have Treasure Trove and Out of the Woods. So I think it's going to be the seed stitch one. I have to find my notes, but that will be the next video. These will probably already be caked up by then, so admire them while they're still in this state. They're gorgeous. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. And if you have any questions or comments or complaints too, feel free to leave a comment below. I read all of them, and I'll try to get back to you soon. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again.